If you're thinking about watching Suzume no Tojimari, which you should, by the way, this video will introduce you to 3 aspects of the movie, 3 beauties you can pay extra attention to if you want to enjoy this movie even more than everybody does. If you're a Studio Ghibli fan like myself, you probably know that this movie's director, Makoto Shinkai, is leading a new generation of animation inspired by Miyazaki's worlds. The candid scenes, the delicate magic, characters who are strong through kindness. I don't feel a need to convince anyone to watch Suzume. The reviews are stellar and the visuals are gorgeous. So, without any spoilers and only showing characters and places that were featured in the trailers, allow me to guide your attention, to give you extra context, extra enchantment, and help you open your heart just a little more than usual. At the end of the video, I'll share a couple of small secrets and curiosities. But to get things started, let's cut to the chase. First, let's talk about the beauty of abandoned places. A theme that seems to come directly from Studio Ghibli. Or does it? Initially, you might compare those spaces with Miyazaki's predilection for ruins and long-gone civilizations. But upon closer inspection, the ruins in Suzume were just recently abandoned. You can still imagine the people who used to live there, a fact that will become important soon enough. It's less comparable to the beauty of hidden forest temples and more akin to urban exploration, like in Shai's YouTube videos. Especially when he finds some old object and spends some time imagining the people who used to use it before it was all dusty. Have you ever tried urban exploration? There's something exhilarating about finding evidence that people inhabited that space. That was somebody's home, somebody's work. Not long ago, it was full of energy and noise. So pay attention to that in Suzume. Those halls here were not always empty, they were walked and cleaned and loved. And that leads us to our second point. The beauty of memory as the source of magic. If you've been following this channel, you already know how much I love magic that's delicate, heartwarming, emotional. Sure, I also enjoy healing and oracles and people flinging fire at each other, but what really gets to my heart is something like this. So indulge me, humor me. Let me tell you a story about the time that I was being first introduced to the idea of magic. And one of my first references was this game that I started playing when I was 10-ish, called Magic the Gathering. In this world building, the source of magic is called mana, a fantastical reference to the Polynesian concept of the same name. And here, mana is represented by cards that look like places, like those here. But what does that mean? If you happen to be a tiny nerd like myself, and you dug a little deeper, you would find this ancient Magic the Gathering novel that introduces the idea of mana like this. The key lay in concentrating on the memories of one's homeland and pulling forth the unknown energies from those memories and that land. But that's just the theory. Here's how it sounds in action. Herko stood at the city gate, and for a brief moment she was alone before the 3 dragon engines. She looked like a frail doll, dressed in azure, her thick black hair flying like a pennant behind her. She closed her eyes and silently raised her arms, and around her, the world began to change. A glow enveloped her, a sapphire hue as blue as the seas around the island of Latnam. It radiated outward, casting a new set of shadows against the ground. The human troops wavered under the light, and the dragon engines disappeared. They were not destroyed, nor did they simply fail or retreat. Instead, they slowly faded from view. The surroundings became clearer and clearer until the engines seemed to be no more than colored fog. This blew my kid's brain. And as an adult, I still find it captivating. You draw your power, your mana, from your connection to the land, by living somewhere, by becoming part of a place, a tribe, a community, a history. And with this kind of power, a single woman can defend her land, her memories, from 3 invading war machines. Despite this beautiful explanation, most of Magic the Gathering's actual magic still looks like flinging fire at one another. But not here. In Suzume, we see how magic that draws its essence from the memories of the land can really look like. How the magic starts to form inside one's mind and heart before it's ready to manifest as an external force. And that's as far as I'll go, else I might spoil some good bits. But I hope it's enough to guide your attention. Think about that, the source of magic. So let's get to point number 3. The beauty of the vulnerable gentleman. And yes, it's time to talk about the walking chair. Don't pretend you didn't know, it shows up in all the trailers, okay? Yet, I don't want to spoil too much about the story, so let's compare it to another vulnerable gentleman, shall we? Remember Turnip Head from Howl's Moving Castle? Remember how this character is strong and caring, while also being kind of clumsy and just a little lovable weirdo? Suzume takes the lesson here. This character archetype is all about keeping the strength of his personality, the things that make his heart strong, despite losing everything that makes his body strong. We can see the sorry state he's in, and the visuals chosen to represent him don't lie. But despite that, we see he's unshaken in his beliefs, his perseverance, his kindness. And that helps us really focus on one particular idea of what strength means. A very gentle version of it. The same goes here. When this little chair says, "Thank you for everything, Suzume-san. This is goodbye. Take care." We know he'd be completely hopeless without Suzume, but even when she decided to follow him, rather forcefully, the first thing he says is, "Your family's going to worry if you don't go home." This is great character exploration, both visually and psychologically. Pay attention to how this character is still himself in spirit, when he's not himself in basically any other way. Those are the main beauties I wanted to introduce you to. Lenses that will help you direct your attention when you watch Suzume. But I still got a couple of cards up my sleeve. Here's some smaller mysteries. As you know from the trailer and the poster, this movie's most striking image is the unhinged door. The door that leads somewhere it was not supposed to. But did you know that's an archetype explored in many other fantasy stories around the world, like the Starless Sea and the Dark Tower series? There's something really alluring about that image, something that makes us dream. Makoto Shinkai's love for Hayao Miyazaki is not veiled, but celebrated. Pay attention to the soundtrack, and you might find yourself listening to a track that's also featured in Kiki's delivery service. I thought that was a really nice touch, a respectful bow to the master that came before. That's actually not the only Ghibli reference. This is another one right here, but you need to either speak Japanese or have a very keen eye to see it. And still on the topic of Shinkai's preferences, if you didn't know, he pays special attention to the depiction of the sky in his movies. So make sure to enjoy his spectacular clouds, not only here, but in the entirety of his filmography. I feel that Western media has a hard time making good use of social media and phones in general as part of their narratives. But here I feel this was very well crafted into the story. It's worth paying a little extra attention to. In a recent-ish interview, Shinkai admitted that Suzume was supposed to be a lesbian romance story, but since his producers vetoed the idea, claiming that the Japanese audience was just not ready for that, he decided to make his male lead a chair. Since he couldn't have the romance he envisioned, this gimmick allowed the movie to avoid most of the man and woman romantic tropes, focusing on the more psychological falling in love. The chair could have been a woman after all. What's the difference? One of the main themes of this movie is the main character's growth, but growth can mean many things. In Suzume's case, growth is not forceful, but adaptive. She's making friends, she's understanding how different people live, and she's tapping on whatever resources present themselves in front of her, instead of trying to fully control what happens next. I think this is a beautiful idea of growth. Growth towards connection and flexibility. This is the sort of story that warms my heart, and though it really doesn't need any help to enchant anyone, I still hope that this video will help you enjoy it even more. Hi, I'm Joriam. I'm a Brazilian writer and I'm learning how to write magical and emotional stories just like Suzume. This channel here is my artistic research and I hope you stick around and explore vast worlds and small emotions with me. If you like this video here, you're probably gonna like this other one about Portal Fantasy. A special thank you to my patrons. Thank you so much for helping me believe that one day I might do this full time. And if you believe in the emotions and the explorations I'm proposing, consider joining the Patreon as well. And I'll see you folks next time. Ciao.